Today I'm going to show you how to make what I'm calling triangular glam earrings. And the reason I call it that is because it's a basic triangle weave stitch, and then we add to it. We'll just do 3 units of triangle weave and then sew around the unit, adding little bits and pieces here and there to make it pretty. Now, the one I'm going to show you today is this one with the Bicone crystals. These are 6mm Bicone crystals. However, I did one in pearls just to see if it would work. And it did. It's a little different look. The only thing I had to change was instead of using a 6mm pearl on the top like I used a 6mm crystal, I had to use a 4mm pearl. So I used 6mm pearls and everything else except for on the very top connection here I used 2 4mm pearls because the roundness of the pearls doesn't allow it to lay like the Bicone crystals do. So the 6mm were just a little too big. However, that's the only change I had to make. Everything else in the earring is exactly the same. So if you decide that you would like to use pearls, then you can do that. You can also change this to 4mm crystals and pearls instead of using 6mm. But you will need to use an 11/0 and a 15/0 instead of an 8/0 and an 11/0 seed bead in your embellishments. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started. First, actually, maybe I should show you what we're going to need. Let's look at our beads here. Getting ahead of myself. For this project, you're going to need, well, for this one, we're going to use Bicone crystals, but you can use pearls, and like I said, you can use 4mm also if you want to. These are 6mm Swarovski crystals, and they are Montana sapphire. And you will need 20 of them to make 2 earrings. Then you will need an 11/0 seed bead. I am using an 11/0 check seed bead, and it's turquoise. Now, as far as your seed beads are concerned, in this particular tutorial, as in a couple of my others, don't use delicates. Use round seed beads. If you want to use a Japanese seed bead, that's fine. Just make sure that it is a round seed bead and not a tubular seed bead. In certain stitches like herringbone and peyote, the tubular seed beads are wonderful. But when you're embellishing and when you're doing a circular type stitch or when you're doing a right angle weave, anything that your beads kind of pull around in a circular type motion, a tube seed bead does not work as well, especially if you're trying to cinch in the top of a netting or something like that. They just don't work. I've had several people send me pictures asking what was wrong, and it was because of delicate seed beads in some of my other designs. So use, like I said, a round. Japanese is fine. They are a little bit bigger than the check seed beads, so you may have to adjust. Instead of using an 11/0, you may have to use a 15/0. You'll have to see. But if you use both the 11 and the 8/0 in the Japanese seed bead, it should adjust itself as far as the spacing is concerned. Keeping that in mind, pick out your seed bead. Like I said, mine is just a little check turquoise. And this is 11/0. And you won't need a lot, just probably 20, 30, well, probably 30 of them, a little bit more. Just put out a gram or so. And then you will need a 4mm Bicone crystal. I'm using also a Swarovski crystal, and it is the opaque turquoise. And you will need 6 of them. And then you will need an 8/0 seed bead. This is actually a Charlotte. It's a check seed bead. Charlotte just has one little facet on the front, on one of the sides. It just makes it a little bit shinier and a little bit different. But you can just use a regular 8/0 seed bead. Charlotte is not important. I just had the color I liked in the Charlotte. And then you will need 2 ear wires and 2 wire protectors. I'm using a silver-plated lever back and then little silver-plated wire protectors. Thread onto your needle an arm's length of 8-pound Fireline. You can use 6. You may have to sew through your beads a little bit more to get a more secure weave. However, you can use 6. I prefer 8. And you'll need a beading needle. I am using a size 10 English beading needle. Size 12 will work well too. And we'll get started. Pick up onto your needle 3 8/0 seed beads and 3 6mm Bicone crystals. Start with the seed bead, end with the crystal. Bring them down to the end of your thread. Just leave a short tail. You don't need a long one, just enough to tie a knot. And we're just going to tie a knot. If you don't like knots, you can sew through. We're going to sew through them again anyway. Just tie your knot between your beads. Like this. And then sew back through all of your beads. When you get to the point to where your knot is, coming out the back of the crystal here, go through the next seed bead and crystal. But exit only the crystal. Don't go through this seed bead here. And then onto your needle, you will pick up a seed bead, an 8/0 seed bead, a 6mm bicone, an 8/0 seed bead, and a 6mm bicone, and an 8/0 seed bead. Like this. Start with the seed bead, end with the seed bead. We only need 2 crystals this time because we are going to share this crystal. We're coming out this side. We are going to go into the opposite side of the bicone and pull. And now we need to secure these little beads we just added because they're loose and wobbly. I'm going to turn my work over just so I can access my beads better. I'm going to sew through the first 8/0 seed bead, the crystal, the 8/0 between the 2 crystals, and then through the next crystal, but not the next seed bead. And this is what you should have. Now, again, we are going to pick up an 8/0 seed bead, a 6mm crystal, an 8/0 seed bead, a 6mm crystal, and an 8/0 seed bead. We are coming out this side of the crystal. We are going to go into the back side, the other side, the opposite side of the crystal, and avoid the 8/0 seed bead that's already there. Just into the crystal. And pull. And this is what you have. Again, the beads are loose. I'm going to turn them around in my hand just so I can get a little bit better angle, and I'm going to sew back through the 8/0 and the crystal, the 8/0 between the 2 crystals, and the last crystal, but not the seed bead. Now we have made 3 units of triangle weave. It's the basic stitch. And that's what we're going to work from. It's the main body of our earring here. And now we're just going to sew around these, embellish, and build them up and make our earring from this base. So we are going to start by going through the 8/0 seed bead next to the crystal we're coming out of. Pull your thread through and then pick up 2 11/0 seed beads and go into the next 8/0 seed bead, just like that. And then we're going to go through the crystal and the 8/0 next to where we are, exit the 8/0, pick up 2 11/0 seed beads, and come through the next 8/0 seed bead. And pull your little 11/0s into place. Now we are coming out of the 8/0 seed bead between the crystal and the seed bead, we are going to place an 11-0 seed bead. So just put one on your needle and then sew up into the bicone crystal and pull your thread through. And again, we're going to put another little 11-0 between these two beads. So we will sew up through the 8-0 seed bead. Sew through the bicone crystal. Get my tail out of the way here. And then sew down into the first 8-0 on the other side of the bicone crystal. Pick up an 11-0 and then sew into the next 8-0 and pop the little 11-0 down between the beads. And then again, pick up an 11-0 and sew between the next two 8-0s and up through the bicone crystal. Then we will sew down into the 8-0 underneath the crystal we're coming out of, and then into the next crystal. We will pick up an 11-0 seed bead, and then we will sew through the 8-0, the two 11-0s, and the next 8-0. Making sure to enter all of the beads so that your thread isn't on the outside. And then we are going to pick up, we're going to make our little embellishment right here. So we are going to pick up an 11-0 seed bead, a 4mm bicone crystal, an 11-0 seed bead, like this, and then we are going to come back, avoid the little 11-0, and come back through the beads we just sewed through. Go through the 8-0, the two 11-0s, and the 8-0, avoid the crystal, and come through. Now your little 11-0s should just kind of lay on top of your 8-0s there. Now sew through the bicone crystal, you can go through the 8-0 and the 11-0s. I'm going to do this in two little strokes here. Avoid the 11-0 on the other side of the 8-0 and pull through. Make sure I went through all of them. Yep, I did. Now pick up an 11-0 seed bead and a bicone crystal. Not sure why my beads are squishing. And an 11-0 seed bead. And then come back through the beads that you just went through and go through them again. The 8-0, the two 11-0s, and the 8-0. You can go through the 11-0 on the other side this time too. And that is what you should have so far. Now we are going to sew up through the bicone crystal and the 11-0 on top of it, right above the embellishment we just added. So this is where we're coming out, right here. And then we're going to go through the 8-0 and the crystal on the top, move our tail out of the way, pull through. Now we are going to sew back through all of these beads in the middle. So sew through the 8-0, and you may have to just take one at a time, which is okay. Go through the 11-0s and the 8-0. Yep, I'm in that 11-0. And then just out of the 8-0. So all you want to do is sew through the little seed beads in the middle here. Don't go through the crystal. And then we are going to pick up an 11-0, an 8-0, a 4mm Bicone crystal, an 8-0, and an 11-0, yes. Just like this. And then we are going to come back through and sew through again, exactly like we did the first time. Go through the 8-0, sew back through all of the middle seed beads. And that's what you should have. And you're coming out of the 8-0 right here. You're going to sew into the crystal, right next to it. Sew into the 8-0, right next to that crystal. Pick up an 11-0 seed bead. Go down into the 6mm crystal, pull, travel into the 11-0, underneath the 11-0 and the 6mm crystal, and the 11-0, the 4mm Bicone, and the 11-0 in your little embellishment here. Just like that. Now we are going to add our little dangly part here. So we are going to pick up two 11-0 seed beads, an 8-0 seed bead, an 11-0 seed bead, a 6mm Bicone crystal, an 8-0 seed bead, and an 11-0 seed bead. So this is what you will have. Two 11-0s, 8-0, 11-0, 6mm crystal, 8-0, and 11-0. Drop them down. And now you're going to come just around the 11-0 and come back up through the 8-0, the 11-0 on top of the 6mm crystal, and the 6mm crystal, of course, and pull through. Don't go up through the next 8-0 seed bead. I'm going to secure this. Grab onto the 11-0 on the bottom and just give it a little pull. Oops, but keep hold of it. Give it a little tug here. And then pick up another 8-0 seed bead and two 11-0s. And sew back up through your other 4mm crystal embellishment. Go through the 11-0 and the crystal. And at this point, straighten everything up. Make sure it looks really nice. The tension is good, or your little dangly will be all crooked and funny. Before you sew through any more beads, just get these arranged exactly how you want them. And then sew back up through the 11-0s and the crystal on the side here. You can also include the 11-0 on top if you'd like. We are going to work our way up now and make our attachment for our clasp here. So we're going to sew into the 8-0 seed bead. We're coming out of this 11-0. We're going to sew into the 8-0. At this point, you can either save your tail to sew back through, or you can cut it off if you'd like. And sew back up through the 11-0, the 8-0, and the Bicone crystal. So now you are coming out of the side of the Bicone crystal here. You will pick up an 11-0 seed bead, a 6mm crystal, an 8-0 seed bead, a 6mm crystal, and an 11-0 seed bead. So you will have 11-0, 6mm crystal, 8-0, 6mm crystal, and 11-0. And then you will come into the opposite side of the crystal you're coming out of. And pull them all down. Now we will sew back up through this little unit we just added a couple of times and go through them, all of them, including the crystal that you're attached to, the 4mm crystal. I'm going to cut off my tail just to get it off out of my way. Now you can, like I said, you can sew it back through if you feel more secure that way. Or you can cut it off. Now I'm coming out of the 4mm crystal because I've sewn around this twice. So I'm going to come up through the 11-0. And I don't really like the way this is looking, so I'm going to sew through it one more time just to tighten it up. It's looking kind of wobbly and funny, and I don't like that. So I'm going to sew through it one more time. And now I'm going to sew through my 8-0 on the very top here. Now we are going to pick up, let me get some more thread here. We're going to pick up an 11-0 and a wire protector. Go up through one of the tubes in your wire protector. And bring it down. Grab onto it. I'm going to get you real close because this is tiny. I am just going to hold it between my thumb and my forefinger here and go down through the other tube. I'm going to squeeze as I pull my thread through so that the thread goes into the divot on top of the wire protector. I'm not going to pull it all the way down to my beads yet because I'm going to add another 11-0. And then I am not going to go down into the 11-0 that I put on. I'm going to go into the opposite side of my 8-0 seed bead. So we're making a circle around it instead of going down through it. And then your wire protector should just stand on top of your two 11-0s. And then we're going to pick it up and sew through the 11-0 and the wire protector again. Pull through. And again, hold it between your thumb and your forefinger. Go into the next divot and the 11-0 seed bead underneath it. If you can do it all in one stroke. If not, just go through the wire protector. Now I'm using a size 10 beading needle, and this is a very small wire protector. So I'm going to pull it through with my straight nose pliers. I'm going to squeeze as I pull my thread through. Make sure that your thread has gone into the divot on top here of the wire protector. Then come back through the side of the 8-0 seed bead. Now you can sew through that again if you'd like. However, with an earring, there's not going to be a lot of stress on it, so I feel pretty secure in that. And then I'm coming out of the side of my 8-0, so I'm going to go back down into my Bicone crystal. And then I'm going to sew into my 4mm crystal. I'm just going to make a circle around this little unit one more time, just so that everything stands straight. After I've sewn through this whole unit again, I'm coming out of the 8-0. I'm now just going to sew back down into my crystal and down into my work following my thread path. So I will need to go back into the 11-0 and the 4mm crystal, and I'll go down into my 8-0, and I'm just going to follow my thread path, secure everything up, and sew through as much as I want to, and then I will cut my thread off. You can see where I cut my tail off. Didn't get very close, I guess. So basically, I'm just sewing through. I'm just following my thread path, making sure I don't cross anything, or making sure my thread is not visible. I'm going to come down through this little 11-0 here. I want to pull these two beads tight, so I'm going to sew them. And follow my original thread path by going up through the crystal here. I just want to get over to these two little side beads because I want them to be a little tighter. And you don't have to, they're fine the way they are, but I kind of like to pull them together. And you can pretty much sew through the way you would like. Just make sure that you don't have any threads sticking out strange, funny looking things, and cut off your thread. If you want to knot, you can. However, as much as we've sewn through this, I highly doubt that it's going to come loose. Some people like knots, some people do not. And I really don't have an opinion on it. Sometimes I knot, sometimes I don't. Okay, so now we have made a whole earring. We're going to grab our lever back. We're going to open it. There's a little opening here on the earring itself. I'm going to open it with my straight nose pliers, side to side, just like that. And I am then going to slide my wire protector onto it and close it. And now you have made an earring. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and enjoy your new earrings. Have a good day. Bye-bye.